We have already spoken many times about the basic exercise of transferring your consciousness into your eternal individuality. From this higher standpoint, you must also observe, admit, nurture, and carry on your thoughts, or reject and discontinue them. Let your soul think. Think in a way that is in accordance with your higher self, the eternal individuality, the divine within you, must express itself, especially through your thoughts. Crucial for the mastery of thoughts is, here as everywhere else, listen to your soul. If it says, "I don't want to think like that," don't do it either. Before you allow a thought to come up, consult your soul. How do I know what my eternal individuality wants and what it does not want? The answer is, your soul speaks to you through your heart. The heart is the most important organ of your eternal individuality. It reliably warns you of everything that goes against your true nature. It infallibly tells you which thoughts are in harmony with your higher self and which are not, which are right and which are wrong. Direct every thought through the heart. Purify it in the fire of the heart. Even in thinking, one should form the habit of directing thought, so to speak, through the fire of the heart. One can feel in this action a moment of bliss, as it were, evoking the warmth of the heart. The feeling of warmth, or heaviness, or tremor, will confirm the participation of the heart's energy. It is even more difficult to attain thought of high quality. A person will often mentally repeat to himself, "I will think purely," but his being is accustomed to egoistic thinking, and a most undesirable form of thought results. It is necessary to exercise thought, not mentally, but with the fire of the spirit, until all ambiguity of thought disappears. Accustom yourself to hearken to the voice of your heart. Carry out, without fail, what it tells you to do, regardless of the material consequences. To suppress or disregard it is a grave offense against your true self. Who is unaware of the warnings the heart gives every time an unworthy act is about to be performed? Such actions of the heart transmit the best calls, but often people force the heart to be silent. This is a grave crime. Your heart warns you before against and complains after every unworthy deed. Often a thought escapes you before you have consulted your higher self, but your heart always speaks up afterwards and points out the mistake. In former times, this was called bad conscience. Listen at least to this remorse. Make a firm resolution not to repeat the same mistake at the next opportunity, which must inevitably come. Live more slowly. Pause. Do not blurt out with a thought straight away. Give your soul time to observe what is going on around you. Make a habit of always consulting your heart first, before you allow your transient personality to generate a thought. Take twice as much time and ponder 3 times before you give birth to a negative thought of blame, condemnation, denial, or dejection. Another important exercise is to dispel distracting thoughts. You learn to focus on one single thought and to eliminate all others. Once you have mastered this game, you can, like Napoleon, open and close the drawers of your brain at will. When you are at an important work, only that one drawer may be open. All others, especially those with personal thoughts, must remain firmly closed. It is difficult sometimes to concentrate thought. Also, it is not easy sometimes to get rid of thought. However, this quality also must be attained. One must know how to set aside, as it were, a useless, intrusive thought. To this end, one may perform little exercises, forcing oneself to consciously turn off a thought, as if massaging the brain. The most important area of application for this exercise is meditation. Is really only the drawer of devotion open? Are all others firmly closed? You must not let yourself be distracted by worldly thoughts. Often I don't even succeed in concentrating completely on the Master. In the few seconds it takes to say the words Moria Maitreya 7 times in spirit. Even in that very short time, inappropriate, earthly, personal thoughts keep interfering and distracting me. Yes, we all feel the same way in the beginning. This shows how extremely important, but also how difficult it is to control your thoughts, and how necessary constant training is. You can and must learn and practice to completely switch off all your thoughts of earthly matters and worries for a certain time. Otherwise, no higher communion will be possible. Closing your eyes alone is of no use, because the distraction comes from within you. People break up their impulses by a multitude of petty thoughts. Some have tried blindfolding themselves and stopping up the ears and nose in order not to be diverted by external sensations. But is the distraction an external one? It actually lies in an undisciplined consciousness. What helps, however, is visualization, which we had already talked about in the broadcasting participation in the life of the higher world. Put the image of your teacher before your eyes. Step in front of him in spirit. Then his presence arises as a spiritual reality in which no idle thoughts can come up. Incidentally, it is the purpose of the much maligned portraits of saints to facilitate concentration. Mastery of thought has another aspect besides cultivating positive and rejecting negative thinking. You must also learn to improve the quality of your thoughts. Think briefly, clearly, concentrated, and purposefully. Most people are hardly able to think clearly. Consequently, they cannot express themselves plainly and comprehensively, and thus will certainly not be able to act powerfully and purposefully. Learn to think beautifully and briefly. How repulsive are those who cannot get to the point even of a simple story or a small concern, but lose themselves in a multitude of trivialities that have nothing to do with the matter at hand and are of no interest to anyone. I understand how difficult it is to capture the fleas of thought. That is why I repeat, ventilate the folds of your brain, so that the tiny jumpers will have no chance to lodge their progeny there. The legacy of shaggy thinking engenders small bugs and cuts short the best paths. If the vermin of the body cause a person to be shunned, how much more repulsive must be the vermin of the spirit? We need to avoid muddled thoughts. Someone wants to tell you about the touching misfortune of a relative unknown to you, and instead of getting to the point, he first tells you where that person lives, how old he is, how many children he has, and what his wife is like. In other words, things that have nothing whatsoever to do with the matter and are not of the least interest to you. Such a person is not in a position to solve any problem whatsoever, because he does not recognize the core, the essence of the question at all. Often people do not notice that many thoughts rage simultaneously within them. As they swarm about like flies, it is impossible to discern which thought has the most significance. Future apparatuses will demonstrate the harm of such confused thinking. What chaos such people will cause after their death in the world beyond, where the whole reality is created by their thoughts. Therefore, mastery of thought is an indispensable preparation for a meaningful life in the higher world. In the evening, you should give yourself an account of what you have thought during the day. How beautiful it would be if everyone, on completing his day, would ask himself about the quality of his thought during those hours. Worthless thoughts could be eradicated as soon as they arise. Going even further, carry out an inspection of your thoughts at each new part of the day, at each change of work, before leaving home and on your return. Make sure, was it right what I thought before? What do I want and need to think about in the next part of the day? Elevate your thoughts again. Rekindle the fire of enthusiasm. Without coercion and discipline, you can control your thoughts by creating a sublime state of mind of a high vibration. In the fiery condition, you are not susceptible to low vibrations, and therefore not to wrong thinking either. According to the law of correspondence, you attract what is in accordance with your mood, with the state of your being. This also applies to thoughts. Is it not true that when we are in an elevated mood, good, high thoughts flow to us? Have you ever had bad thoughts in meditation, or while you were moved by the music of the great masters, or by the solemnity of a cathedral? Do not desires, cravings, envy, ambition, depression, and selfishness remain silent? You can gradually get rid of low thoughts altogether by learning to keep your mind constantly, even after meditation, the end of the concert, or leaving the church, in a fiery state of calmness, sublimity, and solemnity. Not for a single hour should one extinguish within oneself the flame of lofty thinking. The highest sage loses his power if he ceases to think about the future abode. It is beautiful if someone is able to always preserve lofty thinking within himself.